Yeah. May I ask Ulf to give a comment? Where do you think in the work plan, the elaboration of what we are just discussing, the mapping and the processes can be found?
2? 3? Oh, okay.
WP3.
Okay.
WP. Work package 3, that's the research work package, which is making a desk research, researching all the initiatives, which we have to
just to make
do very quickly.
Yeah. So just to make these colleagues aware of what is their hard work on the ground as a result of our discussion.
Who is WP3?
You are leading the work.
But also
Finland and Portugal. These three UCP,
Okay.
RU, Alto University.
That's not rubbish.
The victims. Yeah.
But I think
And also
with that,
adult education.
it'll be upstream in terms of it. I think it has to be brought into by everybody.
Absolutely.
We have a common vision,
Absolutely.
building of it.
Yeah.
Unless we all, the kind of processes and stuff, unless we all buy into it and understand it, it won't help.
Absolutely. I mean, this is absolute. For sure, we have to really come to an agreement where we say that this WP3, which is really the heart of this process. From there on, WP4, 5, 6 will always take elements. This has to be, I mean, led by you, but it has really to be an effort of everybody, and it has to be due July. So it's going to be very.
I think maybe we need an ecosystem of the 8 packages.
Yeah, that's what we should do tomorrow.
Yeah. We will start with this ecosystem this evening already.
All right.
Right. So maybe we have one group left. Anthony, I wanted to invite you to give an overview. But before you start, maybe, in the beginning of this exercise, actually, I had this idea that there would be 3 groups, and they would develop flip charts, and on the flip charts there would be 50% coherent and consistent, and 50% different. But what I see now actually is that there are no real contradictions. Also due to the nature of the group work that we were rotating and so on. And so I would suggest, so far at least, I haven't checked it so far, but so far at least, that we take this and that we make a positioning paper out of this, which is trying to capture the points as good as possible. And we are going to put it in the wiki, and we are going to ask for your validation, and then take this as the first approach of OPAL to define open educational practices.
We disagree with everything. I'm joking. Okay, so I'll try and answer the questions directly. That might be shorter. So first, what are open educational resources? Now, in our discussions, we realized that open educational resources are actually 2 things. They're a physical thing, and they're a set of ideas. The 2 are, of course, interrelated. So, let's talk about the thing first of all. What makes something an open educational resource? So we need to go word by word. So first of all, open. Now, when we say open, we also mean free. And it seems to be the general consensus of everybody that when we mean free as in air, not free as in beer, to borrow the software metaphor. Then we had a discussion about what is educational. And here there was a bit of a disagreement. Somebody said that anything you can find on Google is an educational resource because it can be used for education. Another group of us thought that no, it has to be something which at least has some sort of educational purpose attached. And we were making a difference between something which purpose is education and something which you can learn something from if you try to. It's not exactly mapped onto formal, informal learning. But we were saying that not absolutely everything in the world can be considered an educational resource if it's just there and available. And that's a question which maybe we could get some more opinions on. Lastly then, we have the thing that it's a resource. Now, this concept of resource sort of affected our entire discussion then. The simplest way of describing an open educational resource is just by having an online database full of things. lecture notes, recordings, reports, etc. I said that's a rather primitive way to think of a resource. I mean, if I give you a resource pack to build furniture in your home from IKEA, the resources, the furniture alone without the manual isn't much use. So I'm saying, in fact, you need a methodology to go with that, to make it a real resource. And while we started discussing this concept more, we started realizing that it's sort of an evolution of open educational resources going on. From pure information to actually use of that information and addition of people into that equation. And people's opinions and people's additions and so on. And that sounded rather familiar to another story, which is, of course, the development of the internet. From Web 1.0 to the social Web 2.0 to, I know not all authors agree on this, but to a semantic Web 3.0. And we started saying that actually open educational resources are following a very, very similar pathway. We didn't really talk about OEP as OEP, but what other groups were calling OEP is essentially what we were calling the Web 2.0 Open Educational Resources 2.0. It's essentially the same concept. Now, to finish the definition of OER is the political side. And the political side is about ideas of openness, of user participation, of having a social element to the construction of knowledge. And there's also quite a bit there about control, who controls, who owns knowledge, and if you will, bringing the power back to the people in this area. Moving from there to stakeholders quickly. Now, here we got caught up a little bit again. We said, okay, the main stakeholders are learners, and learners are everybody who learns, and everybody who learns is everybody, so everybody is a stakeholder. But then we said, okay, but we need a much bigger budget to focus on everybody. So we have to think of this a little bit. And with regards to the concept, we said, now if everybody is learners and everybody is contributing, is there such a thing as an expert? Is there such a thing as a teacher anymore? And here we use an example actually developed from another project on peer learning. I was saying that while the borders might be fuzzy, you can still define a teacher type person, an expert type person, and a learner type person in most educational processes. Now there might be some overlap, so the teacher, to take a simple example, a wiki page, it's usually created and maintained by somebody or by a group of people. You have a group of people who just read that for information, and then you have the ones which cross over, the ones who add small edits or change things, have a discussion around it. But the roles of teacher and student still exist, just with more interaction between them. So he said that in terms of the power politics of all of this, there is still this role of, there is some top-down in this, but it's a lot more mixed up than it used to be. In terms of mapping stakeholders, I won't get into it a lot, because we had similar ideas to the chart there in the sense of that we need an ecosystem of mapping who's connected to who, and so on and so forth. The last thing we focused on a little bit, it was who benefits from OER. Is it actually a good thing? Now, generally we said yes, everybody benefits from OER, but we acknowledged that it might mean paradigm changes for certain institutions, for certain hierarchies which exist. Generally speaking, we link this to a concept of saying, listen, but you can identify a social good in OER, and that social good can be linked to a mission of pretty much any educational institution, even a private educational institution. So generally, I guess the conclusion from that would be that it can be hard, but yes, it's worth the effort. And I'll stop there.
Thank you very much. Any questions to Anthony or?